We are learning new, really disturbing details about the teenager who was driving 112 miles per hour when he crashed into a vehicle, killing 3 children and a woman who was driving. It is part of really a disturbing trend involving violence and youth. This segment is brought to you in partnership with our friends over at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org. And I know this juvenile crime issue is something that Future 42 has been focusing on quite a bit. Now, we discussed this story last week. So basically, there was, I think the car was on its way, is part of a homeschooling program. So there was a woman driving, her 2 children were in the car, and then there were also 3 children who were part of the homeschooling thing in the car. So they get hit by a vehicle driven by an 18-year-old who was going 112 miles an hour. The woman dies, the 3 of the children die, her 2 children were left in critical condition. And the last update that we got is their conditions are still very, very serious. So new information came out on this teen. His name is Chase. Well, he's 18, but he's an adult. His name is Chase Daniel Jones. He has now been charged by the King County Prosecutor's Office with vehicular homicide, 4 counts, vehicular assault, 2 counts, and reckless driving. I'm going to read some of the details from these court documents. It's just shocking stuff. It says, the driver of the causing vehicle is the defendant, 18-year-old Chase Jones. He was witnessed speeding and weaving around other traffic and using the shared turn lane to pass. His driving has also been captured on videos. Witnesses were alerted to his aggressive driving and excessive speeding in the 40-mile-per-hour posted road. Crash data from his vehicle corroborates the witness accounts. It showed he was speeding through the red light at 112 miles per hour at full throttle without braking. This was an incredibly violent collision with 3 feet of intrusion into the minivan, which was crushed and pushed into 2 other cars before rolling on its side. Immediately killed was Miss Hudson, the woman who was driving, 13-year-old Matilda Wilcoxon, 12-year-old Eloise Wilcoxon, and 12-year-old Boyd Buster Brown. Found in the crushed wreckage by first responders was the 14-year-old and the 12-year-old who survived. They're both in intensive care still with significant brain bleeds, internal injuries, and broken bones. It goes on to say, and this is I think Nicole had said last week that she suspected this a little bit because there was sort of the pictures looked like the car was very new, the car this 18-year-old was driving, that it had dealer plates, that it was a really nice car. So that part of this is now coming into focus. It says the investigation has revealed that the defendant purchased this vehicle, a 2015 Audi A4, a month before this collision. It is the 3rd vehicle he has totaled in a crash involving speed in 11 months. In May, he totaled his car in a similar circumstance, plowing into the rear quarter panel of a car, resulting in massive damage but no injuries. He admitted at the scene that he had a wide open road, so he gave his car some gas. In January of this year, he totaled another vehicle. The other driver complained that he had not seen the defendant due to the defendant's speed. And here's the key. In both those crashes, the defendant's parents were at the crash prior to police. So I think the suspicion here that this had been some entitled 18-year-old seems to be pretty clear. And we criticize the system a lot for juveniles who break the law feeling as if there's no consequences. We criticize, everything from what happens in schools these days, where it's like, oh, you didn't pass, no worries, it's not a big deal, no consequences. You're not passing your grades, you're not succeeding academically or socially, or your behavior is out of line, and you're given all these free passes, like, oh, hey, it's not a big deal, not a big deal. And so then we wonder why juveniles go on to commit crimes and believe that they can just get off with it scot-free. And so we criticize the system, we criticize the government, we criticize schools, and this is an example of parents needing some criticism as well. I mean, what parent I don't even know a parent who would buy their child 3 new vehicles in the span of a year after they already totaled 2 of them. And look, I don't know this family. I imagine, now they have a situation where their 18-year-old, who's obviously charged as an adult, is going to be facing potentially decades in prison. I'm sure the family's wishing they hadn't bought him another car. And now you have a situation where that teenager who had already shown that they could get away with this kind of behavior without consequence has now taken the lives of 3 kids, potentially 2 more, who are fighting for their lives, and a woman and a mom. So that's horrifying. And it is an example of all around how society is failing these kids. And then it gets to the point, we talked about this before. You let them off the hook, you let them off the hook, you let them off the hook, and then they do something so bad, their life's over. Their life is ruined. Either they're going to die from it or they're going to prison and their life is over. So we're not doing juveniles any favors by taking it easy on them, by making excuses for them, by making them believe, rightfully so, that there aren't consequences for bad behavior. And this is an extreme example of that. I will also say, just because I want to note it, there were at least 3 teens shot and killed over the weekend. One of them, a 17-year-old girl, shot and killed in Tacoma. That happened on Saturday night in the Hilltop neighborhood. Just devastating. But again, and Democrats are going to call this gun violence, gun violence. I get it. I don't know the circumstances around why she was shot or the legality of whether the person had the gun legally, but you already can't use a gun to kill someone. So you can say gun violence, gun violence, gun violence, gun control, whatever it is, you already can't use a gun to kill someone. So what we need to do is to try to figure out how we manage the behavior and how we change the trajectory and the behavior of people who are picking up guns as youth illegally, using them to kill other human beings. And then I just want to mention this one because I imagine that we're going to have more on this. It's very bizarre. So 2 teen boys were found shot to death on the side of I-5 in Seattle in 2 different locations. So one was found Thursday night. And in reading the stories about this, it sounds like somebody thought it was like somebody hit by a car, right? Because they're on the side of the freeway. And no, police got there and they had been killed by a gunshot wound. And then Friday morning, they get another call to 911. And they found another teen who was dead with a gunshot wound. And what police are saying, they're still investigating the circumstances of this. Both the boys were 16, found on I-5 in Seattle, that they know each other. So they obviously are like, okay, this is clearly related. You've got 2 16-year-olds, both shot. And I don't know if they were dumped on the side of I-5 or if they were shot on the side of I-5, and they know each other. So they're investigating that this is obviously related and talking to family members and trying to figure out what happened. So look, I think you can see all of these stories and, well, at least those last 2, and talk about, oh, we need to, get guns off the street and whatever it is that are killing our youth. You can have that conversation, but if you're not willing to take a hard look at some of the reasons behind the spike in juvenile crime. I mean, we talked on the show last week in the city of Renton, they've had a 900% increase in juveniles committing armed robberies at gas stations. And huge increases, not quite 900%, but like 300% increases in things like property theft, for instance. And so we need to, as a society, get a hold of this issue, or you can imagine what the next generation is going to be like. And it starts really with making sure that at their youngest age, these kids are being taught that they have responsibility for their actions, whether it's at home, in a classroom, or whether it's on the roadway when they commit some sort of criminal act. If we're not willing to impress the importance of responsibility on our youth throughout the system, then we're doomed. That segment was brought to you in partnership with our friends over at Future 42. Turn your frustration into action at future42.org.